Hello.
Hi, Izzy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Izzy. Hi, Annabelle. Hi, Duncan.
Hi, Rob.
Oh, Royston. I
Hi,
don't know who Royston is.
a friend of Duncan's.
Oh, right. Oh, hi.
Hi.
You doing the tech for him, are you?
Neither of us are very techy.
Okay, so I am recording, so I'll probably be uploading to social. So if you don't want to be seen, you can just always turn your mic off, turn your video off, anything like that. So yeah, well, what's this about? It's not about anything really. What it points to is that this is it. So having a Zoom call with friends, talking is all there is. There's nothing else. So that really is the beginning and the end, you could say. But within this appearance, within life, you could call it, there can be this contraction, this contracted energy of I am, which is I am here, I'm an individual, I'm a person, I am on this Zoom call. And what this is suggesting is that is, so there's nothing wrong with that, but what this is suggesting is that is a complete illusion, that is a dream, and it just never happens. So there aren't really any questions and there are no real answers in that sense, but we can just have a chat, anything that comes up. There's no right or wrong. So, or we can sit in silence. Let's just see what happens.
Izzy.
Hi, Annabelle.
Hi, hello. In your experience, way of thinking, whatever, is there such a thing as consciousness? Does that equate with nothingness?
So this isn't an experience, so, or a philosophy in that sense. So there's no one sort of sat here with an idea of what's going to be said. So, okay, this is the topic I'm going to speak about, and I'm going to talk about nothing. Like, so consciousness, to me, really, consciousness is just a word. I don't really know what it means. It doesn't sort of have any meaning in that sense. You could say all there is consciousness if it was in the absolute sense of the term.
The way using it, yeah.
Exactly. But just the same as you could say all there is love, or all there is life.
Sure.
So it doesn't sort of have any meaning in terms of I am conscious, or I am pure consciousness. That's another one the person can sort of aspire to want to be pure consciousness or have that experience. Yeah.
But when the individual disappears, gets out the way, gone, all there is what, in your opinion?
Well, that's the funny thing, actually, is you could say all there is this, but it's this already. So that's the funny thing, is that there is no individual to disappear. So really, there seemed, with non-duality, or the word non-duality, there seemed to be a few different forms of communication, and one, you could say, appeals to the person because it says all there is this, but you feel separate, so I'm going to show you how to not feel separate and to overcome this. But what this is saying is that actually there is no real separation in the first place. So when I say it's a dream or an illusion, there actually is there's no dream or illusion.
If I use the word consciousness, I would I don't always say this, but this is how I think, how it appears to me, that consciousness appears as a flower. Consciousness appears as this. Consciousness appears as that, but it's not real. It's all, I don't know what to call it. You call it nothingness. I call it consciousness because it's very full to me. It's a thing about fullness and emptiness, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's entirely empty, but simultaneously completely full. So yeah, in that sense, the words don't matter because there is no word you can put to this. So yeah, consciousness, you could call it. I just think consciousness is such a loaded sort of term in this whole sort of conversation that it can have lots of different meanings. So, you know, when you start talking about like nothing, then the person's a bit like, well, what does that mean? So, but yeah, it's sitting on a phone call, apparently sitting on a phone call, having a Zoom meeting. It's this. So whatever words you use doesn't matter, but it is entirely full of itself. Yeah.
So does it make sense to say that flower it is nothingness, conscious? I like the word consciousness appearing as, like it's, thank you, appearing as.
Yes,
I would agree with that, Annabelle.
Pardon?
Would agree with that, Annabelle.
Well, in a way, yes, but it doesn't mean there's this separate thing called consciousness, let's say, to use that word, that is appearing as a flower. No, the flower is the appearance, if that.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So there's not, so if you use nothing or nothing being everything, there's no nothing somewhere else that is manifesting this everything. No, this is nothing being everything. So you could say this is consciousness being a flower. There's no bigger consciousness that's, oh, hey, I'm going to produce a flower.
Absolutely everything is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that. I don't know how the words to say that.
No,
but
there's no words.
It just seems so devoid of, it seems like very empty, whereas everything feels very full to me.
Well, it's empty and full. It's empty fullness. So it's completely empty and completely full. And there's no
Just semantics, really.
You can't make sense of that. Nothing can make sense of that. It just is what it is. But for the person, the emptiness can be quite sort of dry, bland. It can seem quite, you know, the person wants this kind of color, this vividness, this life. But to the person, the emptiness is boring, not exciting, because it's nothing. But until, maybe you could say as a story, until the fullness is seen, then yeah.
My ex-husband used to say, my ideal is to be in a white room devoid of anything. Right. Oh, we're living in the tropics, everything was full and color, and you know, it was so it's the same as what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, of course, the person would want to sort of strip back life or tame life, you know, live in silence, or live in a room with nothing, or live in a world where there's no issues, because the person wants everything to be perfect for them and to work in their world. But life is uncontrollable, it's chaotic, it's wild, it's free, and it doesn't care about you. It doesn't know you, because there is no you.
Can I say something?
Hi, yeah, of course.
Hi, Royston, from Scotland. I just wanted to ask you, would you agree that there is, I'm not saying this is separate, but would you agree that there is an apparent person, which we sometimes think we are, but there's also the awareness of an apparent person? So, you know what I mean? There is an awareness of our conditioning and everything. So that is that, but that's not separate. But there is an awareness which we are aware of, actually. Would you agree with that?
In part. So there is an apparent awareness, you could say, but the apparent awareness is not someone's awareness. So it's not that there is a person who is aware of that conditioning, of those patterns, of this meeting.
No, I'm just saying that, sorry, I'm just saying that, I'm not saying it's separate, but I'm saying that this apparent person we are is actually a limited dream, if you like. It's a limitation. We impose limitations on ourselves by thinking we're a limited person with all our conditioning, right? But there is something beyond that which you can't actually define. It's indescribable, but it is who we are. It is who we are, but it's not definable. It's eternal. It's infinite, but it is who we are, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if that you'd agree.
Yeah.
Yes, in the sense of all there is this, and you could say yes, it is who we are, but as you say, there's no separate individual who is that. But there's also no one actually imposing separation, or there's no me inside who's thinking itself to be separate. So it's not that there's an ultimate sort of this is who I am, and then but I think I'm separate. What this is suggesting is that idea is a complete dream. It just doesn't happen.
No, I agree with that. What I'm trying to get at here is, from my experience anyway, is that if I'm acting out of conditioning or a sense of limitation, I'm acting out of a sense of who I think I am, out of an entity which I've created, right? But the I that's created it isn't definable. But when I'm speaking my truth, I feel myself. I feel, what's the word? I can't quite describe this, and it's not a separate self, but when I'm speaking my truth, I feel happy. I feel this is who I really am, even if I don't know who this person is. No, I'm saying it's not a word. When I say person, I don't mean a separate person. I just mean that what's speaking through me when I feel I'm speaking truth is who I know I am, or what I know I am, and that's not definable. It's fluid. It's like it can't be defined. It can't be. So we're not separate. We are a ever dynamic, fluid expression of something beyond who we think we are. That's what that's what I feel. I don't know. I just wanted to share that, really.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, Royston.
But what this would also suggest is that when you are not speaking your so-called truth, that's also this.
Okay, it is this, but I agree with that. It is this, but we don't realize it's this because we think we are somebody doing something. And the false self, I call it the false self, if you like, and that's what I'd like to call it, and the true self, I think there is a true self and a false self, but the true self is indefinable. So
but this is the thing as well, that the false self, you could say, or the person, I tend to say, is the true self appearing as that.
It is, but we don't realize that. Okay, we don't realize that. We think we identify with this false self. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, there's not really another separate thing that then identifies with this false self. So they're just, I don't see this false self. There is just wholeness.
You don't see it. Well, something's aware of its false self, isn't it?
Well,
otherwise we wouldn't know it was a false self. If there wasn't if there wasn't an awareness of the false self, we wouldn't know. We would be totally identified. We wouldn't know anything but the false self. But there is something which is actually aware, oh, this is false. This is not true.
Well, that is the funny thing, because there is no awareness or knowing or identification here. So there is no one that is sitting here like, oh, I am the true self, or there's no realization that I have realized my true self.
There's no separateness, which is knowing I'm the false self, but there is something which knows. There's not a thing. It's not a thing. You can't put it into words, but there is. There's a knowing. Let's put it that way.
Oh no,
There's a knowing.
no.
There's a knowing of truth and falseness, isn't there?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, what would you say?
Well, there just is no knowing. That's the funny thing. The whole setup of knowing completely collapses.
We know if we're acting truly or falsely. We know if we're acting out of conditioning. There is a knowing in that sense. Wouldn't you agree with that? I mean,
no, that is the dream. The dream is the dream of knowing, and knowing really is the need to know by the.
But we can discriminate between truth and falseness. We can there is a discrimination. Otherwise, we would be totally identified with the false. You know, we know if we're being true or not. Don't you know if you're being true or not? You're speaking truth now. You must know that.
Absolutely not. No. I
don't know.
No.
But this could be you don't know. This could be untruth. From your point, you don't know whether you're speaking truth or not. But what's the point of this in that case?
Well, that is the funny thing. There is no point to this. There is absolutely no point. It's entirely pointless, meaningless, and purposeless. So this is not really about discovering truth, because there is no ultimate truth.
There's okay. Well, this is just words, because I'm trying to point out for me that I can tell if I'm acting from a sense of truth or if I'm acting out of not a sense of truth. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Talking about?
Sorry?
When you say I know whether you're speaking the truth or not, who is that, or what is the I?
Okay. It's the I that is hearing you speaking to me now. It's the I which hears your words.
Okay.
And I don't know what that is, but I know it's there because I know I exist. There's an existence. I know I exist. That's all I know. That's all I know is that I exist.
This is the dream. The dream is I exist. I sit here. I know something that is false and that is true, and I want to discover what is true and what is false. That is the dream. So upon death, or the apparent death of the individual, that completely collapses. So there is nothing here that knows it's sitting here, and there's no experience of sitting here and talking on Zoom. Absolutely none.
Nobody knows. Nobody can really say what happens after death. I think the death of an individual. Sorry.
Well, that is what this is suggesting, that this is death. So this is not knowing. This is not experiencing, and those are just words. They don't mean anything. So I don't sort of go around, like, oh, I don't know, I don't experience. It just is what this is. There is no experience. There's no search for truth. Truth, the search for the ultimate truth as opposed to the false truth, or the higher self as opposed to the separate self. That is sort of the setup of the person, always looking for God and not wanting the opposite, always looking for the love, not wanting the fear. It's this constant search, and what this is suggesting is that there is no end to the search, because the search itself is just a closed loop with no one inside, and that this is already whole and complete, with feeling separate, not feeling separate. It's everything.
You're go on. Sorry, Duncan.
Hi, Duncan.
Hi, Izzy. Could you say something about the transition between being a meditator and whatever you were? And can you say anything about how that, that transition? What's the experience of that?
Well, the funny thing is, when you could say the apparent person falls away or is seen not to be there, the thing is that it's seen that it was never there, ever. So that's the surprise, in a sense, is that there was an expectation, you could say, for something to die or something to fall away. And the funny thing is that it was seen that it just was never there. So in the story, you could say things like meditation, things like spiritual practice, self-inquiry, just faded out upon that, and also just lose their sort of purpose, because here anyway, they were always sort of striving to get something or to realize something or recognize something. And so when it's just obvious for no one, by no one, that there's nothing to get, I mean, meditation may happen if sort of the character finds it relaxing, but there's no sort of goal in it, I guess. So it's very natural. There was nothing like, oh, well, now this has happened, I must stop meditating. Like, it's very natural, very organic.
But there must have been, in the apparency of it, some kind of transition from that earlier condition of being identified with the seeking and all that.
In the story, yes, but the thing is, the death actually doesn't happen. I know. So to the individual,
in a sense, we're here for the story, aren't we?
oh, absolutely. This is all just a glorious story. Yeah. From the individual, it's a very real death. But that's the thing. It just doesn't happen. Nothing happens.
Just can I just say, I'll ask another question, Izzy.
Yes, of course.
There was you said that there was a recognition of something, though, wasn't there? When there was a recognition of that truth, if you like, there was a recognition of the dream, or the recognition of what you're trying to put across, wasn't there? Before that, there was not a recognition. So isn't that true to say?
Apparently, yes. Yeah, you can't say it's you can't say that absolutely happened, because it didn't. So there's an apparent recognition.
Wasn't there a kind of aha moment for you then?
Sorry?
An aha moment?
You could say, yeah, you could say there were lots of those sort of glimpses, you could say, but the thing is, sort of in the end, I mean, to the person, they really feel as if like, oh, I'm getting closer, I'm getting much closer. And I'm nearly there, but really death is instant. It's not, and it's not instant because it's timeless, but it's not a path. There is no path. It's this already.
Yes. Okay.
But of course, to the person, the sort of aha moments or the glimpses feel really precious. They feel very important. But actually, they keep the loop going, you could say, because they set up right, okay, this, maybe the person fell away or apparently fell away, and there was this glimpse, and then the person appears to come back and then chases that, wants to get it back, wants to realize that again, wants to be back in that state or have that experience of bliss or love or whatever it was.
Sure. I did have the experience once when I was actually with a teacher at a retreat, and I was feeling very relaxed, because I felt comfortable in the environment, and I suddenly had the realization that, when I thought I was going to be making a fool of myself by saying something, I suddenly had the realization there's nobody really. The person I thought I was that was going to be make a fool of myself isn't real, right? So when that was such a revelation for me, that was kind of like a glimpse to me that was, well, no, that's not who I am. So it doesn't really matter what I say, right? Because there's no mistakes. There's absolutely no mistakes. And that was such a freeing experience for me,
Yes, and this is that is the freedom, but for no one. So there's no one sort of here who's who feels so free because there's no mistakes. So I'm not sort of you know, I don't experience the freedom of, oh, it's great because I don't have to be, you know, embarrassed if I make a mistake. Like there's just that sort of story just doesn't run. It's just very normal and very natural.
Sure, but maybe not always. It's only that was before that wasn't before that case. It's only happened since you had the apparent, as you would call it, apparent awakening or whatever.
Well, actually, this is natural. All of this is natural. Wholeness is very natural.
Yeah.
And there's no before and after. That's the thing. So to the person, it can really feel like there will be this moment where there'll be liberation, and then there'll be the before, and then there'll be after. And yes, of course, you could say in the story, after the apparent liberation, there may be more of a relaxation of the system, because it's just obvious that there's no one to protect anymore. But there's no one here that's knowing there's no one to protect. There's just no one to protect.
No, but I would say that, well, for me, there's a great sense of freedom anyway. Let's put it that way. Sense of freedom if you're no longer, if there's no longer an identification happening, put it that way, with a self that you thought you were. Isn't there a great sense of freedom? Yes,
but there isn't anyway. That's the thing. So
you mean there always was a sense of freedom, but you didn't realize it. I didn't feel it at the time. I only feel the freedom when I feel it. It may be I'd always been free, but I never felt it until I realized it, if you like.
I agree with you, Royston. I had a similar sort of experience that the false self that I realized that I had been for many years was actually non-existent. It was just a sort of like a thought construct, which I had been looking at to kind of inform me what I was supposed to be thinking and doing at the time. It was quite like, I mean, the nearest one that I've heard is Eckhart Tolle's story, although probably not to quite the same degree, but nevertheless, it was a huge surprise at the time.
Yes, when he thought there was two selves, and he realized that one of them was false, is what he was saying. He
Absolutely,
realized
yes,
false,
that was the same thing that happened to me. I wasn't sort of depressed or anything, but it was something that was a great surprise to discover.
Well, that is the funny thing, in a sense, is there is no true self and false self. And that's what this is suggesting, that there just is no self. There's no true or false. There's no higher or lower. There's no individual. There's no not individual. It's just this. So the concepts of true self and seeing through the false self to get to the true self, that is the dream.
I was just going to say, well, how do we know we exist at all?
Because we're on Zoom.
Nothing knows that anything exists. So no one.
I know I exist. I know there is something. I know
That's the dream. That is the dream.
But there is something which is here, existing.
No.
Well, this is the dream that's existing.
Well, the dream doesn't even exist.
Well,
the dream is that something does exist.
This is the dream here we're doing at the moment on Zoom.
But when the ego collapses, there's nothing to attach it to.
Absolutely. I mean, the ego, the person isn't there in the first place. So it's boundless energy. Absolutely, yeah. It's everything. There's no center. There's no center in the body. That is the dream, that I am here. And it's energetic. It's a contraction, usually in the head or the chest, of I am in the body. And that's just energy. There's no person, obviously, in the body. And that can just collapse and explode into boundless energy. So yeah, exactly. There's nothing to attach to. There's no center.
When
It's
you're talking
completely
about, can you define how are you using energy? What do you mean by energy, Izzy?
Oh, well, I don't know. I can't answer that. It's another word for this. It's energy can have I quite like that word. It can have a quality to it. It's wordless. It's this.
Could you say that we're life happening? Life happening? Would you accept that life is here?
There's no life.
No life.
You could
No life.
No life.
you could use the word life if in the absolute terms. Yeah, all there is life.
Because life happens. It just happens. It's not
Apparently.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, apparent life.
It doesn't actually happen. No life actually becomes manifest, so to speak. It's apparent. No
But
one
this
can.
manifestation, bodies are wouldn't you call bodies and things manifestations?
They appear, they're an appearance, but they're not.
Well, that's what manifestation is, isn't it? An appearance.
Well, it doesn't actually become manifest. Apparently, it appears, but no one can confirm it either way. So it's not real, but it's not unreal either.
I mean, what about the simile of the mirage in the desert? Is apparently real until you get to a certain point and it isn't. It never was. Or the snake in the rope one as well. That there never was a snake.
Absolutely, yeah.
According to Izzy, there was never a desert either.
No.
Can I say two things?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, hi. Izzy, first of all, having been a parent and now a grandparent, one sees children growing up. And our daughter, when she was about 2.5, was sitting at the table with Royce and myself. And she said, she pointed to me, I'm not daddy, I'm not mummy, I'm me, right? Which I believe quite a few little children have. And so that somehow happens to us at a certain stage. And who knows why, I'm not questioning that. But that was one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say was, rather than talking about a true self and a false self that's been mentioned, I mean, can one not also say living from a defended self where somehow something thinks that this is separate, or an undefended state where there is such openness that there is ultimately no awareness of separation? Yeah.
Yes, so to answer the first part, this contraction, you could say, I mean, when a baby is born, when a baby is apparently born, there is just boundless energy, and that's quite obvious. With a baby, there's a newborn child, there's no center, there's no one in there who does anything, there's no one who knows they're doing anything, which is what this is, and that never changes. But I think there has been some research on this actually about
it seems that you agree on the existence of babies, is it?
Apparently, Rod. But I think it's around maybe like 1.5, 2, as you sort of say, where this apparent awareness can come in, and this contraction of I am here and this is me. And that, as you say, is when children then start to claim that things are happening to them and feel as if they are themselves and a separate person. So yeah, that you could say is when the sort of dream begins, and there's no reason for that. There's no explanation. As you said, there just is no why. and this can collapse at any point. There's no sort of, no insight or revelation needs to be had or recognized. It can just collapse again for no reason at all, for no why. It's just death. So sorry, go on.
So there was great joy in our 2.5-year-old girl when she actually realized she was not daddy or mummy. It was a huge, like an opposite realization from a let's say a non-dual one, that she actually was not either of us, but she was herself. So yeah, but I'm also hearing everything you say, and that at any point this can dissolve or whatever. But yeah.
Second part of your question.
Yeah.
What was the second part of your
What
question?
was the second? Oh, yeah, the second part of my question was to do with rather than talking, as Royston and some people talk, about a true self and a false self. Can one not talk about living from a defended state of something we think we are, we've been defending all our life, or an undefended state where there is, well, it's not even a state, where there is just openness, and maybe sometimes I've experienced this a little, but it's I like those words. I like those words, being defended or undefended, where there is nothing to defend. And that's who we are, as you're saying, in a certain sense.
Yes, and it's a good word in many ways, because the me is defensiveness, you could say. That's all it consists of, because really it's just defending what it believes to be its life, and really that just means avoiding its own death. Because you could say deep down, you could say energetically, it knows that this is all there is. It knows that this is everything, and it's just sitting on a Zoom call, and there's nothing else, and there doesn't need to be a reason. And it knows that, but it likes to create all these stories and these problems and then try and fix them. And this is the loop, just because it's avoiding its own absence. But the thing is, it's already absent. So that's the sort of ironic thing, in a way, is that it's avoiding its own death, which is already the case.
Could you say that? Could you put that in another way? Sorry.
No,
Could you put that another way and say there's a resistance all the time to what is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's constantly rejecting this.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it wants something better, or it wants to stay on top of the moment. It wants to know this. It wants to know the direction it's going in. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So if there's a resistance to what is, then that can be noticed, I suppose.
The resistance is part of what is as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the resistance is part of what it is, but there's a possibility of either noticing that or not, isn't there? I mean, we can notice that we're resisting, or we can be so caught up in the resistance we identify with this entity which is resisting.
Who does?
Well, exactly. No one can notice that. No one can be caught up in that or reject that. And also there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with resistance to what is, so to say.
I'm just saying there's a noticing of it, though.
Perhaps,
Noticing of resistance, surely.
But that doesn't matter.
Or a not noticing of the resistance.
Sorry?
There is either a noticing or a not noticing of resistance. I mean, what I mean is that if you're really noticing it, you're not in the resistance. Okay, the noticing takes you out of the resistance. Otherwise, you're locked in the dream of resisting, of an individual entity who's resisting life. But there must be a noticing of that.
Well, this sort of goes into the sort of self-inquiry, I am pure awareness sort of line, which is part of the dream. It's still part of the individual, which is.
It's not a philosophy. It's just there is actually a noticing. It really happens. This noticing. It's not me saying I am pure in awareness. I actually notice if I'm resisting. There is a noticing of resistance. Let's put it that way.
Yes, but that's the dream, that I notice I'm resisting.
No, the I is not separate. I'm not saying the I is separate. There is a noticing. There's noticing happening. like life happens, noticing happens, noticing doesn't happen, resistance happens, noticing happens. No, when you're noticing, you're not resisting, you're out of the resistance. It happens. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I'm not saying I as separateness is doing it. I'm saying I as whatever it is noticing, there is a noticing, and that's the noticing. It's not separate. It just happens.
Perhaps you could say all existence is just various forms of noticing.
Or not noticing.
Or not noticing. That would be a lesser noticing, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so.
Well,
So
this is this noticing, this awareness is all part of the dream. So it requires a constant effort, you could say, to constantly be aware, to notice, to constantly take one step back from the so-called.
No, it doesn't. It happens. It either happens or it doesn't happen. Noticing happens. It happens when you stop. When you see the resistance. Well, the resistance. Oh, the resistance is, there's resistance and there's noticing of it, right? It's the resistance is happening, and then suddenly the noticing happens. So.
Yeah, that's all still part of the dream.
Okay, the part of the dream. Well, okay, well, if everything's a dream, that's okay. Everything's either a dream or everything's real. I don't know. Who knows? It's just words.
is there a difference?
Just words.
What do you think of all this, Duncan?
I'm just listening. I noticed the just the mind stuff, identification with the opinions and trying to work something out that is not work outable in that way. So.
Okay.
Izzy, is it appropriate, or would you want to say how this happened, this awareness, a bit about the journey, with the apparent journey? Like, did you come from a Buddhist background, and was there a moment that suddenly everything collapsed?
Sure. I mean, yeah, general interest in meditation, sort of Buddhism, non-duality, then sort of self-inquiry. And you could say that none of that always felt like an effort, that always felt like a path, which it appears to be. Even this sort of noticing or trying to be aware is appealing to someone who isn't there. So then I guess you could say came across this message, and just it's sort of game over then. Energetically it was just felt that this was it, and then you could say there was a sort of apparent breaking down of the individual setup, which could, people call it like meing and being sometimes, like sort of feeling like me and then feeling like periods where there wasn't me so much, and then eventually that just all collapses in death.
Suddenly?
Absolutely. More sudden. You can't even call it suddenly because it's timeless, but yeah, it's not slow.
Not a gradual dropping off.
Oh no, absolutely not. It can seem as if maybe some of the neuroses or some of the energetic tightening can loosen, but the sort of explosion into boundlessness, yeah, is sudden, you could say, for want of a better word.
Do you think that there is any way of encouraging that, or do you think it is purely just something that happens or doesn't happen?
Well, the thing is, it's this already, so there's nothing to encourage. There's nothing that has to happen because it's already this. So I really can't sit here and say, oh, you must do this, this and that, and then it will happen, because nothing has to happen. It's already this. There is no separation.
Yeah. Yeah. My feeling is that nothing can be done about it.
And there's no it for anything to be done, because there is no problem.
You said, Izzy, that you came across this message. Did you mean you met Tony Parsons, or what sort of way? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was. I think I first read Tony's book and then started listening to this more. Because before that it was more sort of self-inquiry stuff, but that never seemed to sort of energetically feel right. So yeah, I came across Tony, Andreas, and yeah.
So is your message about energy? Is there something about energy? You're often talking about it, Izzy. Energy. If there's not resistance to life, then that means there's a lot of energy available. So, presumably you found a lot of freedom and joy in your life that you didn't have before, which is, the joy is happening through the expression through your body, put it that way. I don't want to say you, because you might think that I'm thinking you're separate, so I don't want to say that.
Yeah, you could say there's you could say there's a lightness, because there's sort of there's no, all the neuroses and all the sort of so-called suffering, you could say, comes from this artificial sense of there being someone to protect. But also it's entirely normal. So suffering may happen, pain can happen, sadness can happen.
Does it happen still to you?
Of course, it's very natural. Well, it doesn't happen to me, no.
No, sorry. So if ever I say that, I don't mean you. I just mean, is it happening in your experience? Put it that way. In the experience, words. Anyway, sorry. Is it have you found a difference in your experience since you obviously wanted to pass this on? So, or no, you're not. No, it's just happening. Okay, so it's just happening that you're passing this on, but. You're not wanting to help anybody, it's just happening, presumably.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, there's no this is the thing as well, there is no message. So I'm not actually passing anything on. I'm not talking when I sort of say
no, that's not what I'm asking. So I'm just asking whether whether there's any difference now in your life with as far as energy, are you accepting the suffering in your life? If you've had suffering, if it comes, you say that it doesn't make any difference whether suffering's there or not. So does that mean that you can experience it fully rather than resisting it? Like so many apparent people resist suffering, and that's what life is often about for people, isn't it? People suffer in life and they're all resisting it. So but sorry. Yeah.
Well, I can't say if it's better or worse, because I'm not here. I don't have a life. I died. So right. I can't. I really can't.
So is there any difference between you now with what you're putting across now? You're putting across this message, if you like. Well, you say it's not a message, but you're on YouTube. You're on. You're sharing something about yourself, and so is there any difference now in what's happening to you in your life that you're wanting to share, which you couldn't have shared if you were if there was a resistance, like when you were a seeker, let's say, it's something different now? Can you say anything about your experience now, which is different when you were seeking?
Well, I don't have any experience, so there just is no answer to that, I'm afraid.
When I say experience, I mean joy, happiness, sadness, grief, anger. If you don't have experience, that means you are dead. You're a robot.
Absolutely, absolutely. I died. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but You're not telling me you don't have feelings. You're
Well,
not
that
telling
is, that is what this is saying, that feelings may arise, but they don't happen to anyone.
No, but they're okay. Feelings are arising. Okay, so okay, in the dream where I'm actually seeing you, an apparent picture of you on the screen here, apparently some feelings might be happening then, right? In this image that you are dreaming, we're dreaming together. Yes. Okay, so you don't want to actually say you're having an experience. You don't want to say if you're feeling. If sadness is happening to you, you don't want to actually say that that's you. You want to say it's just happening, right? To everybody, right? So
Nobody.
Well, this is, I'm not sort of sat here making this up and pretending that it's not happening to me. It just really is not happening to anyone. So this isn't a theory. I'm not making this up. This is a lived reality, you could say, but that's going too far, of there being no one.
okay, it's just where
There's sadness
just
arise.
your experience and how if your experience has changed. That was what I was asking you, and you know
Well,
how
you could say the
feelings
experience
change.
changed in which the idea of experience even being something collapsed, that died. So I can't really say that the experience before and after is better or worse, because
Okay.
it is the end of experience. So
So nothing's really changed, really.
oh, absolutely not. Everything is exactly the same. Nothing
Exactly the
has
same.
to change.
No, I'm not saying nothing has to change. I'm just saying that nothing for you has changed then. Okay. That's interesting.
Would you say, Izzy, that sadness arises or joy arises, but just arises? It's there and not there.
Absolutely. Totally
Yeah.
normal.
Just
Totally
arise.
normal. Yeah,
Same as before, but to nobody.
absolutely. It appears. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
And same as before, but same as always. There's
Yeah.
It's totally normal. Thoughts are just thoughts, feelings are just feelings, cars are just cars, trees are trees, happiness, sadness.
Yeah. I think we all know about that because we knew it when we were born. Whether we can access that again, I don't know, but that somewhere there's a knowledge because it I'm sorry about the words, but it was ever thus.
Yeah, and the word remembering is quite nice, or like recognition, because it can be said to be, you could say, like a recognition of what always has been. So it's nothing new. It's more like, oh yeah, like this has always been home. It's always just been this. And actually the dream is that it's somewhere else. So nothing's added or taken away. It's just this. And it's stunning. It's so stunningly ordinary. There's nothing special or spiritual or higher or lower about it. It is just really gorgeously, ordinarily sitting in front of a laptop.
That's lovely to hear you say stunningly and gorgeously. I really like that. Thank you.
But ordinary, so plain, but beautifully plain.
Yeah.
It is just so, yeah. Of course, it's the person that wants it to be, you know, all bells and whistles, colourful, glorious, godlike. But this is God, you could say. And it's just sitting in front of a laptop. It's stunning.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, good. It's stunning. That's great to hear, because one wonders what the purpose of being here with you at all if you didn't use some of those words.
Oh yes, I'm afraid there's no purpose. But that's stunning too. The beauty is the purposelessness and the pointlessness. That's the love.
Love. You say love.
Unconditional love, yes, you could say.
Yes. Unconditional love for everything that is. Yeah.
what is unconditional love for no
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. That's very, I like that. Thank you. Thanks very much for sharing with us. We've got to go, but it was
Thank
great to have a dialogue and share with you.
Yeah, lovely to meet you both.
And to
And
you,
you.
everybody, as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
I
Bye.
So just a comment that might be interesting to someone. I've just been reading the book that Jim Robinson was talking about, you know, at the last non-dual cafe.
wasn't there.
Weren't you? I thought you were. I know Duncan was there.
I didn't come until 12 o'clock, and I think it was all over then.
Oh right, okay,
That
yes.
invitation was over.
Anyway, he was in the book. I can't remember the name exactly, but it was the Buddha needs therapy or something of that kind. Anyway, apart from that, but there was an interesting bit in it about the difference between awareness and consciousness. Now, because normally we find that awareness and consciousness are used sort of synonymously, but the way that he was using it, this guy was Keith Martin Smith, his name, the guy who wrote that book. Yes, what he was saying is that the sort of ultimate is awareness, you know, which has no properties, no you know, characteristics, that sort of thing. The one that Izzy's been talking about, but he defines consciousness rather differently as a sort of the consciousness that we have now of this Zoom meeting is a sort of limited version of awareness. That's how he's sort of defining the two terms, which
That's semantics, though, isn't it?
It is semantics, but it's interesting to know of that particular definition, because it can be confusing if you know, we're used to talking about consciousness, unlimited consciousness and that sort of thing, although perhaps we ought to just talk about consciousness being the unlimited version and the localized version.
Yeah, unfortunately there isn't another word in English. I think there is in Sanskrit, but I can't remember what it is, for a distinction. Although somebody who the other day said to me, who is knows very well who he is, said that consciousness, awareness was a product, the consciousness was a product of awareness, but I don't know about that.
Yes, that's pretty much that Keith Fellows, that's his take on it, really.
Yeah, I sort of use the word synonymously, really.
Yes, I tend to as well. And I think a lot of people do. Certainly, like Rupert Spiro, who I used to listen to a lot, he always uses that word, you know, the word synonymously. So
it's only necessary when we have to talk about it.
yes, that's right.
What is your take on that, Izzy?
Well, those words don't really have any meaning. They are just words. You could say there's an apparent awareness by no one of there's apparently feeling, apparently listening, apparently seeing, but when you sort of, I mean, it all sounds terribly confusing, really, and it's sort of this problem the person creates with the hope that one day, if they solve this dilemma of what is consciousness, what is awareness, and understand it all, then that will lead to liberation. That's the hope. So yeah, this sort of importance of understanding what those words mean just completely collapses.
Yeah.
I mean,
Otherwise, we talk about.
Oh, of course, like talk. You know, that can, like anything. It doesn't lead anywhere. Yeah.
No.
Like a newborn baby wouldn't, wonder, am I aware? Am I conscious? All this sort of self-inquiry. It's just not needed. It's not required, and it doesn't actually happen.
20 years later, when it needs to talk about it, it might need to know the words.
The simile I like to use is, it's like when you are when you're holding somebody that you love, there's a moment. There's just a moment. There's not even a moment. The moment you say, I love you, you've come down from it. You lost it a bit, you've got something else there.
Absolutely. And this is boundless love. So this is energetically boundless love. Yes. So as you say, the words, you can't, how do you describe love? You can't. No one can. It's just love. And this is love. Everything is love, you could say. So it's the absolute embrace by no one. Everything is absolutely, it's the ultimate embrace. So everything is okay, so to speak, but for no one. It's a very mediocre way of saying it, but it is. There's nothing has to change. And if that's really heard, that can be just very obvious all of a sudden, that nothing has to be recognized or realized. And the person can keep telling themselves this story of, well, I have to realize, I have to recognize, I have to get what Izzy's got. She's clearly recognized something. But no, I haven't. There's no one here that's recognized anything. It's total poverty. Total poverty. But because it's total poverty, it's also absolute richness.
It's the open secret of how to be really annoying.
Well, yes, of course, for the person, there's no way around this. It's a closed loop.
For those who didn't know, The Open Secret was the title of Tony Parsons' book. Did he do any more than one book?
Got lots of books.
Oh, right, okay. I think that was probably his first one, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I bought about 10 copies and gave them out to people.
Gave them away, and they never spoke to you again.
No one ever got it. I didn't get it either. And I went to see him as well, down in Cornwall.
Yeah, I've never been to one of his live meetings, but I did. I've listened to a couple of his things on YouTube. And
I used to go to Hampstead on Saturdays. I think it was first Saturday of the month or something. Did you used to go to those?
Sorry, what? I didn't get what you said.
I used to go to Hampstead.
Oh, Hampstead, no.
Yeah, used to talk there on, I don't know whether it was the first Saturday in the month, I can't remember, but where I found him so rigorous that for people who were groping, that it wasn't helping them. In fact, he was getting quite irritated by them.
Well, that's what I noticed on some of those videos.
Which is okay too, when you're at that understanding. It's perfectly all right to be irritating and irritated. Anyway, we all have a way of expression. It was just an expression.
When was it that he did these talks in Hampstead there? Because I used to hang out around that area.
I can never remember how many years ago. It was a long time ago. Not long after his first book came out.
Right, yeah.
Or a bit later than that, after I came across the book.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, I like this. I want to hear more about this.
Yes, you could say in a sense that what the person is kind of seeking is permission, you could almost say, permission for this to be it, because it knows that this is all there is, but there's a sort of seeking to want to know, to really know, are you sure this is it? Can you just tell me that this is it and I can give up the seeking? So really the person actually does long for their own death. The person longs for their absence, but will never be able to get it.
And I sometimes think that is why people talk about, for babies, the terrible twos, when they're also angry all the time and want to do their own thing, their own way. And I think it's they're really angry that they're suddenly got embodied.
Yeah, suddenly I feel like someone.
Yes, and I'm embodied and I'm supposed to behave in a certain way and do a certain thing. No.
Well, yeah, and that is the fight, you could say. And it's sort of, it obviously looks different as the person apparently gets older. But
Yes.
there's no difference between the person sitting here saying, I want to get this, I want to know what Izzy's saying, and the 2-year-old saying, I want an ice cream. Like, there's no difference. It's the same.
And if I can't have it, I'll put the cereal over my head. Yeah.
Exactly. Enlightenment or awakening is liberation, is the biggest spiritual sweetie. And it just doesn't exist. There is no enlightenment. Or everything is enlightenment, you could say. For no one.
Yeah, it's not nice being embodied in this, as Douglas Harding used to say, about that he does it about the head, into this meatball peering out of 2 little peepholes. Is that really who I am?
Yeah, the contraction seems to have a sense of agitation or restlessness about it. Yeah. That just is how the setup works. Constantly looking for someone else, for something else, sorry. And yeah, it's, from person, it's obviously not funny at all, but in the end, it's sort of revealed, you could say, that was only oneness doing that, or appearing to do that. There was never a person that was trying to get out. It was oneness appearing as contraction or separation. And that can just collapse when you could say it's recognized by oneness, maybe, that it's just a game. So it's sort of a cruel, in a sense, you could say, because for the person it's really important that they get out and that they realize this.
It's a good game though, so you shouldn't be a party pooper.
Exactly. None of this is serious. None of this is, there's nothing serious about it.
What do you think about going back to the embodiment again? And thinking of Jeff Foster, who got very ill recently, or in the last couple of years, with Lyme's disease, I think. And he said that he completely collapsed back into personality because he was in such pain. So do you think that can happen? I mean, I'm thinking of these horrible things that are happening now in Syria and Turkey, people being buried for 10 or 11 years, days, not years, days. And whether that contraction can happen.
My impression is, I mean, death is death. So there's no answer to that really, whether this energy could contract again. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't actually contract in the first place. It's always just boundlessness. So that would sort of be assuming that there was a contraction, which can then dissolve into everything. And what this is suggesting is that there's already everything, and that the contraction is an illusion, albeit a sort of embodied illusion, you could say. It's not just a thought, I am, it's a sense of I live here. So yeah, could the contraction come back? Well, what this sort of suggests is that there is no contraction in the first place. So no.
There's another different experience.
Yeah, of course. And there could be apparent sort of I mean, to use, I don't really know different words, but there could be this dance, you could say, like if maybe there's illness of the body, that there could be potentially like more focus on the like arising feelings or sensations of pain, if that's quite prevalent, of course, but that's just another happening.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call that like a contraction of, oh, okay, I live here again.
Yeah, just something else happening.
Yeah, it's just another appearance, pain in the body, just like birds in the sky. Yeah.
Currents in the bun.
Sorry.
Currents in the bun.
Currents in the bun, exactly. And the sort of illness or disease or sickness would only be a problem for the person. So it could be painful, it could be sad, it could be upsetting, but it's not a problem. It's only a problem for the person who would try to fix it and make it better.
Yeah.
But this also isn't saying that like better can't happen. Medicine could be taken, you know, getting healthier could happen. But there's just not that sort of personal agenda anymore. And a lot of the motivations that a lot of the behaviors, you could say, or all of the behaviors really, are driven by me, driven by the person. So when that collapses, a lot of the behaviors just seem to naturally collapse with it, but not on any sort of conscious effort of, well, now there's no one here, so I won't bother going to the shops to get new makeup or whatever. Like, there's no controlling of the behaviors. They just might naturally shift or not.
Yes, like Sri Nisargadatta would still every morning dust carefully all the pictures of the great saints and people who'd helped him, you know, that and I'm sure he didn't think he was separate, but he still went on doing that because, I don't know, maybe he liked it, or maybe it happened.
Yeah, it's just programming, really. It's just habits. But obviously a lot of those habits have been built in the first place to get somewhere, or out of fear, really, to protect someone, to ensure that I'm okay. So yeah, as I said, they can just slowly dissolve.
Out of love, also out of love.
What habits?
To be dusty, you know.
Yes, of course, yeah, but but this sort of,
That's I'm sure there was no I, but dusting.
Within the person, there can be all these different sort of, the person can have all these flavors of perhaps fear, what it thinks to be love, but this isn't love in the person's sort of way. This love is, well, this love is ruthless, actually. It's fierce, it's wild, it's free. It's not fairies and rainbows and valentines. It's not love. That this is boundless love.
It can be that as well.
Of course it is that as well. Yes. But it's also not that. So it's everything. It's death. Love is death.
Roll on death.
Yes, which is this already.
I have a friend, and his wife said that this is years ago, that whenever John wakes up, he says, "Roll on, Jeff."
Well, that's the thing. Death for the person is quite well, it can be this, well, the ultimate fear, essentially, even if it's subconscious. But there's nothing, death is nothing, so it's nothing to be afraid of, because there actually isn't death. There's not a thing called death. But it's this massive fear in the person's artificial reality that one day I will not be here, but the person already isn't here.
Didn't Tagore say something about death is nothing at all? It's just extinguishing the lamp because the light has come, or because the dawn has happened.
Yeah, and the lamp was never on, I would probably say. So there's no real extinguishing.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay, well, unless anyone has anything else they want to add, probably a good time to leave it, I guess. So I think I'll do another one next Saturday, but probably earlier at 10 a.m. If anyone's around, I'll put the link out on, it'll be somewhere on social media or something.
Izzy, can I just make a quick technical comment on the Zoom? I spent like the whole of lockdown doing Zooms every week, running them. And one of the things that turned out to be a quite a big problem for people was giving a new code every week. That's bad news, because people are looking it up and they can't, they're using it's much easier if you use the same one. And also a numeric password, not that camel case sort of letters.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
is it before you go, Izzy?
Oh, hi, Duncan. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. It's been lovely to be with you.
Thank you, and you.
And also, I'd like to pick up that book sometime that I lent you, if you still have it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I've got that.
Are you still in the area? Okay.
Yeah, we can arrange that. Send me a message or something.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, lovely to see you all.
Yes,
Yeah, thanks, Izzy.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.